Well, howdy there, Internet people. It's Bo again. Tonight I'm going to start off with an anecdote. Telling it for two reasons. The first is that I just saw somebody try to tell it and butcher it, and there is nothing worse than putting a lot of thought into a great concept and having it relayed poorly. And the second is it's very timely. Fits with a lot of things we've been discussing on this channel. So there's a civics teacher, and it's the second day of class, and this guy's job is to talk about government. It's what it is. It's what he's supposed to do. So he's standing up at the front of the class, and he says, okay, at the end of the week, you guys are going to have to divide yourselves into groups of 4 or more. Now, I'm going to walk around the room, and I'm going to whisper a word in your ear. If you follow instructions, some of you may get an A in this class and never have to do anything else. Some of you may fail. The word I'm going to whisper in your ear is determined by where you chose to sit today. It's all done by a seating chart. So he walks around the room. He starts whispering. Gets back up to the front of the class, and he says, okay, if I whispered the word witch into your ear, your job is to get into a group with 2 or more churchgoers. If you do that, you get an A. If I whispered churchgoer into your ear, and you end up with a group, or in a group with a witch in it, you fail. Now, predictably, the class erupts, talking about how unfair it is. But begrudgingly, over the next week, they divide themselves up into little groups. They're mad, but they do it. At the end of the week, everybody's sitting there in their little groups, and he says, okay, if I whispered churchgoer into your ear, raise your hand. And everybody does. Now, when I just heard this anecdote told, it was kind of like a gotcha moment. There were no witches at Salem. Nah. I think it was a little bit deeper than that. I think the guy was a little bit smarter than that. The only person labeled a witch on that seating chart was him. His job is to teach about how government works. That's what they do, isn't it? They tell you what to be afraid of. They whisper in your ear and tell you what to be afraid of. Tell you the penalties if you don't do what they say. If you don't ostracize these people. If you don't take the correct stance. They get you so scared, you never stop to think about why you're even participating in it. I think it's very timely because of a lot of the discussions that take place here. Because that's what most of them are about. At the root, we wouldn't even be talking about them if it wasn't for fear. Fear of the other. Fear of this thing that might happen. But the reality is that there's not many witches. Now, it was a common theme in the comment section of that video on the proposed Alabama law about false accusations. A whole bunch of guys worried, terrified, afraid of those witches making false accusations. The poetic justice of using something related to Salem as an example and lead into this is not lost on me. But that's what they're worried about. Should they be? Really? Or is that a witch? The reality is, guys, unless you walk around terrified that you're going to get raped or sexually assaulted, probably shouldn't worry much about false accusations. because you are more likely to be sexually assaulted than you are to be falsely accused. That's the reality. But somebody whispered in your ear, "Witch." And you believed it. Panic struck. Terror. And while we're on this topic, some of you may have already seen it. There's a video that's out. It wasn't exactly leaked. I just didn't want to put it on this channel because it was a little dark. That was a concept, not a refined, finished product. So I don't want to hear any critiques about the production value on it. Did a little PSA about that Alabama law and how that will be used. But I'll put the link in the comments section. Just to understand, it is dark. It wasn't something I felt comfortable uploading here, even as just a concept. Okay, now back to the topic at hand. Probably pretty afraid of terrorists, too. They're witches. They are. You're more likely to be killed by a cop than a terrorist. Probably worried about school shooters. Not saying you shouldn't be. It could happen. Could happen. Your child is more likely to die by suicide. You worry about that? No. Because nobody's told you that that's your fear. Nobody whispered that spell into your ear. The witch, the government, those in authority, the head of the class. They didn't tell you that. Illegals, right? Undocumented workers. They're certainly a witch today. Even have the same propaganda. They're poisoning us from within. They're violent. They do all these horrible things. The reality is they are more law-abiding than the average citizen, and you are more likely to be sexually assaulted by a cop than an illegal. Iraq, you know, active duty in Iraq. Death. Big fear. Reality. More vets killed themselves during that time period than were killed by enemy action. Fear. What can be used by those at the top to keep us fighting with each other, just like that class. Keep us kicking down or punching left and right rather than punching up. Fear. That's what it takes today to win an election in the U.S. You got to tap into what people are afraid of and make them more scared. Turn them into cowards. They want to hide behind a wall. There's nothing more symbolic than that. It's ridiculous. And the thing is, most of them truly believe that they're the best, brightest, and bravest. They're afraid of somebody who speaks a different language. As we're coming up and trying to move forward in this country, you might want to think about who's trying to keep you terrified, keep you afraid, and those people who are trying to charge ahead through the fear, through the things that are supposed to be our downfall. You can determine from that who you want to follow. Anyway, it's just a thought. Y'all have a good night.